23532. Last night, I attended the Murrieta Temecula Republican Assembly meeting down there at Temecula, Old Town, right above Old Town, right by the City Hall. And we had Craig Huey as our guest speaker. If you're not on Craig Huey's email list, you want to be on it. This is a man who has the elections so well understood and so well researched. He even does research on the judges running. And he talked about what it's going to take to hang on to Congress, to hang on to get, okay, in California, we're not hanging on to anything, to actually achieve a turnaround in our representation in Sacramento here in California, and how you can work on your local neighborhoods. We're going to be doing the same thing at the Constitution Association meeting, constitutionassociation.com, on April 1st. Our guest speaker is going to be a gentleman by the name of Harry Ramos. He's a former city council member in Murrieta, California, and wants to talk about how we can, number one, understand what's going on. Number two, how do we tackle it? Number three, what are the best tactics for turning things around? And so we got a lot of great things on the horizon. I was also yesterday morning, I was in meetings down in San Diego with a bunch of pastors, Congress of Racial Equality. We are working on getting Constitution classes at the chapters that we're going to be creating throughout California. 4 states have shown interest in also having chapters and my Constitution classes attached.
Are those all Western states? Or which
no, Florida, Texas, Illinois, and Arizona.
Well, very good. That gives you 5.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
California.
It's getting very interesting. We're having some great stuff happening because, and it's funny because we talk about how we want to drain the swamp. And, drain the swamp is another way of saying we need to make a change. Get rid of all the knuckleheads. Get rid of the people that are causing it to be a mosquito-infested swampland. I mean, John Adams, if you read, John Adams hated Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is almost like a wetland area that was between Virginia and Maryland. And Virginia and Maryland, I think, gladly gave up that property. When they were asking Virginia and Maryland, hey, why don't you guys give up a little bit of property so we can create the capital of the United States of America? And they went, oh, okay, we got exactly the crappy land for you guys. So they donated this. They ceded. I shouldn't say donated. It's sort of like donating, I guess, but they ceded the land. They ceded the property for the Washington, D.C. And there are people who say that Washington, D.C. is actually sinking right now because of soft dirt, land, whatever. It's a cesspool. It literally is a cesspool. And John Adams hated Washington, D.C. He considered it a miserable, mosquito-infested wetland. And the cesspool, the swamp terms are nothing new to the politicians, to Americans. We've been calling it that for a long time. Donald J. Trump, when he sprang into the political scene in 2016 during the presidential election cycle, among the things that elicited the loudest cheers is when he said he would be draining the swamp. But what did he mean? Was draining the swamp just getting rid of these leftists who hold office, or the bureaucrats and the staffers, the judges? 70% of the judges in the federal court system consider themselves leftists. What did he mean? And so I got to looking that at what he is trying to tackle, and what I've realized is, first of all, these people are entrenched in the system. Their desire to take down the American system, for lack of a better way of putting it, knows no bounds. This is a war.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that their livelihood is in the American system?
Oh, I know.
They're in the bureaucracy of the federal government, but it's almost like wanting to kill the body that is the host for your existence.
Parasites. That's what parasites do. Yep. They suck off their host until there's nothing left, and the host dies. But usually, what happens? They die with it. That's socialism, communism, Marxism, leftism, progressive. You name it. It's a parasite. It requires a free market system so they have the money to spend to destroy the free market system they're leeching off of. And it's a war, and it's a war that requires eternal vigilance. This kind of thinking never goes away. And so a constant warrior spirit that is determined to return this country to its original roots as a republic, and as a nation with the U.S. Constitution serving as the law of the land, that's necessary. So, and that's a part of what this radio program is all about. Give you information, teach you about what's going on, or remind you about what's happening. Talk about constitutionality of things, so on and so forth. So I decided to take this program and break it up into some different swamps that exist today. American liberty leads to American opportunity. That's my if I have an elevator pitch or a slogan, like "Make America Great Again" was Trump's. It's pretty brilliant. You know what Hillary Clinton's was, right? You remember what hers was? Nobody remembers.
Strong
Because it
together,
was it was a horrible one. Alex, do you remember what Hillary Clinton's presidential slogan was?
It was something like "Together Strong."
Or "Stronger Together."
That was a saying. She said no. Her slogan for her campaign was, "Are you ready for this? I'm with her." That is like one of the worst slogans ever come across in my life. No wonder she lost. And then Craig Huey last night was showing us the way to win, and it isn't through television, and it isn't through mailers anymore. It's through the internet, through technology. And Trump, doubled his social media presence than what she did. He and in return, he got people who would not normally be voting to vote. He also did other things. Craig Hugh was talking about last night how Hillary Clinton was offered by evangelical churches, pastors throughout the country, to at least sit down and have a talk with him. She refused every one of them. She did not speak with one evangelical pastor. Now, Obama did. Remember when he sat down with what was that guy's name? Pastor Warren.
Jeff Warren from Saddleback Church.
In
Southern California.
Exactly.
Yep.
And what did that? And that did wonders for Obama's campaign. I mean, it ticked off a lot of evangelicals, but it got some of those votes. It did wonders for him. So Trump learned from Obama. Trump met with all these evangelical pastors. I was talking to someone about when he had that big meeting with all these pastors, a huge room full of pastors.
Talking about after the election.
No, I'm talking before.
Oh, okay.
And
he had a bunch come to the White
and he
House.
Yep. Well, yeah, that was later. But no, I'm talking about during the campaign. And from what I was told in that room, and James Dobson was there, right. And Franklin Graham. I mean, some pretty big names. Jack Gibbs from Chino Hills, and from what I understand, from what I've been told, it was sort of like the American Revolution. You go back to the American Revolution, a third of the population supported the fight for independence. A third of them really didn't care. They were ambivalent, and a third were against it and were really loyal to the crown. Well, in that room with Trump, the pastors, about a third of them supported him. About a third of them were never Trumpers, and about a third of them, they really hadn't thought about it. They were ambivalent. By the end of his meeting with them, he had changed a lot of minds. In this election, Mr. Trump was able to do something that no Republican has ever been able to do before. He got 81% of the evangelical vote. 81%. And that high of a percentage has never been achieved by a Republican before. Well, it's because Mr. Trump was willing to do the things outside the box. It kind of reminds me of a story. And I actually told the story at the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party on Thursday night to illustrate a point. And it's actually a true story. It's a small town. It's a real small town, and they've got this one local barber. He charges $10 for a haircut, and people go to this guy's barber shop, and then across the street eventually the Supercuts kind of place opens up, and they're charging $6 for a haircut. And the first thought of a liberal Democrat be like, see those big corporations trying to take away the business of the little guy. No, the little guy has to compete. He has to learn how to compete, and he has to think outside the box. So as the Supercuts or whoever it was taking all of his business for with $6 haircuts, cheaper price, the guy across the street doing the $10 haircuts, he's starting to feel the pain, and he gets out a nice big white board, and he uses black marker to put up a new sign in his window. And here's what he put on that board: "We fix $6 haircuts." Lo and behold, a couple months later, the big giant chain haircut place was gone. thinking outside the box. That's what Trump did. He was totally outside the box, but that's also what scares people because they don't know what to do with the guy. Alex, real quick before we get up on break here, I know you've got probably a million things to say and not enough time to say it. What do you think about what I just talked about when it comes to Trump being outside the box and how we have to learn to think out the box as well?
Well, Trump is a very special breed of cat, and people are beginning to accept the fact that he's not a cookie-cutter person. He's not the same kind of guy we've been getting all this time.
Right.
And there are advantages and disadvantages to that. We definitely need somebody who's going to break through all the corruption and we've always done it this way philosophy. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we have to accept that he goes off the handle. He twits. And somebody was saying that on the tube the other night that you have to discount some of his more outrageous statements in order to get to the core of what is going to save this country.
I think some of his outrageous statements are part of his strategy, actually.
Yep.
Don't you?
Yeah, but you have to sort through which is which.
He doesn't tell you why he says what he says when he says it. You know.
Yeah, there's been a few times where he'll say something and everybody will be freaking out, and I'm thinking about him. I go, no, actually, that was brilliant because he elicited a certain response that he wanted. It sometimes his outrageous remarks. What it does is it flushes the quail out from behind the bushes, so to speak.
Well, and also during the primary, he just sucked all the media attention out of the room. I mean, even if you had money, like Jeb had more money than anybody when he started. He was supposed to win without any question because of all the cash he had. But even with the cash he had, and if he even tried to spend it all, he couldn't get the attention in the media that Trump was getting for free because of Trump's style and what he was saying.
Well, it's like the old saying goes, so sometimes bad publicity is even good publicity. It's like I remember Kellyanne Conway caught, no, it wasn't her, it was another representative, but someone was in an interview that representing Trump, and she was wearing a necklace that was shells for, they were rounds for, I can't remember the caliber, but basically a bullet necklace. And the left was going nuts over it. And I thought, brilliant. You wear a necklace, you get all this attention, and suddenly nobody cares what Hillary or Bernie or anybody else had to say because everybody's talking about this outrageous, unbelievable mullet necklace around the neck of this woman. He spent less than $1 billion on his campaign. It's like 900 something million. She spent 1.4 billion. 1.4 billion to lose. He spent less than $1 billion. Why? Because they did stuff like that. Talk about getting free press. And they said, well, I can't stand the fact he uses Twitter. No, that's awesome. He's bypassing the media and everybody's paying attention. Okay, maybe sometimes his tweets are a little, as Mr. Ferguson would say, outrageous, but it's getting attention. Okay, when we return after the break, we're going to talk about the swamps. We've got a judicial swamp, a healthcare swamp, a women's rights swamp, a media swamp, a bugged swamp. Interesting. Immigration swamp. We're going to talk about all of that and more, and how the Constitution ties into all of it when we return. Don't go anywhere. The Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party meets every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. for informal breakfast and discussion. And they meet each month on the second Thursday at 5 p.m., all at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning. Listen to interesting speakers, learn about our Constitution with our free classes, enjoy friendly discussions, and informal dining. Come join us. For more information, call Glenn Stoll, 951-316-3843.
you got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at All-Star Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President, Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. I am Douglas V. Gibbs, the Constitution guy, your Constitution authority here in America. American liberty creates American opportunity. And you can learn more about what I do at douglasvgibbs.com. Read my blog at politicalpistachio.com. Visit my Facebook pages, Douglas V. Gibbs, or Constitution Speaker, or Political Pistachio, or Constitution Association, or Constitution Education Seminars, or the big one, the one that has over 11,000 followers, Constitution Study. And, of course, you can also, while you're at it, you might as well also get on KMET's Facebook page so you can find out more about the broadcasting. I was loving it, matter of fact, over the weekend, man, because there was some of these games that I wanted to hear. KMET, man, they got the Kings going. So let's see, real quick, Sean. So the KMET has the Kings, the Rams, the Lakers, and the Angels, right?
Yeah, we also have the Clippers and the Lakers. I mean, Clippers also.
So we got both local NBA teams, the only NFL team in the area, the better baseball team. Okay, I just lost all my Dodger fan listeners. And I'm an Angels fan. Sorry, guys. And the Kings, which I actually like the Ducks, but we'll go with the Kings.
And by the way, the Kings are on tonight at 7
plus
p.m.
Great Talk Radio.
Kings are on tonight at 7 p.m., by the way.
The Kings are on tonight at 7 p.m. You know what? It's funny because I wasn't really much of a hockey fan, but see, I am such a football and baseball fan. That time period in between the Super Bowl and opening day for baseball, I start getting into hockey. And then what happens is I start paying attention enough that then I wind up hanging in there till the end of the season. But I enjoy watching hockey. I've been a Laker fan my whole life, but I don't follow basketball as closely as I do baseball and football. But anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about. President Donald Trump, during the presidential campaign of 2016, constantly discussed draining the swamp. So far, however, the swamp has been a big problem for the Trump administration. Let's see, with the leaks, insubordination of Obama appointed people, internal strife because of those Obama appointed people, and even people that have been there forever that's not necessarily Obama appointed people, but they're Clintonites or whatever. And even outside of manipulation and sabotage. So the real damage has been coming, though, when it comes to all of that, has really been coming from the courts. And the Democrats have hunkered down in the judiciary, doing all they can to use legal attacks to stop Trump's actions as president of the United States while further embedding themselves so as to make it harder to dislodge them. The problem is the U.S. Constitution never gave the judicial branch such power. In fact, coming out of the gate, the judicial branch was supposed to be the weakest of the three branches. The judicial branch has no constitutionally granted legislative power, no enforcement power. They simply have the authority to apply the law to the cases they hear. And then they're only supposed to take certain cases, those that are authorized by the U.S. Constitution in the sense of the issue, those regarding the laws of the United States, those that are regarding treaties, or those regarding ambassadors, and there's a whole list. And
disputes between states.
Right, disputes between the states. So there's a whole list of them in Article 3. And we have them taking cases that are not on that list. Now, as a society, we have come to believe that the courts are at the top of the food chain, that they are there to check the other branches of government. And the reality is, it is Congress's authority to check the power of the judiciary. In the exceptions clause, Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, Congress has the power to make null and void unconstitutional rulings with legislation. Did you hear what I said? Congress has the authority to strike down unconstitutional rulings and opinions. Also, because the Congress is authorized to create the inferior courts, Congress has the authority to limit and even dismantle the jurisdiction of federal courts inferior to the Supreme Court. So here's the question. Why haven't they? I mean, either they're ignorant of their authorities, they're fearful to use them, or they're fully aware and they've just decided to refuse to do what is constitutionally afforded them. Instead, we hear from Congress and the media, the courts have ruled, there's nothing we can do about it. Or Trump, well, we'll let the courts decide. No. Do they even understand any of the principles of the United States Constitution that they took an oath to protect and defend? Unfortunately, the American people don't even understand the Constitution. We have come to believe the false version, the ideologically constructed version, the version that was created by case law, the opinions of a bunch of judges, rather than what was originally written down and meant by the original language and the original definitions of the words used. So instead, this ideologically constructed version has been crammed down our collective throats ever since the leftists began to realize they could twist the original intent at will by simply telling us, well, we're just too stupid to understand it. And they are the keepers of the proper interpretation. In Article 3 of the Constitution, the powers granted to the judicial branch are limited. But as the creators of the inferior court system, Congress can eliminate any and all federal courts and judges, save for the Supreme Court of the United States, if they so desired. Now, we're told that 70% of the judges are anti-constitutional, liberal, left, Democrat ideologues. The first question has to be then, why hasn't Congress tossed the unconstitutional members of this court system and reorganized the inferior courts into something that is more in line with the original intent of the United States Constitution? When Trump talked about draining the swamp, did he also include in that the judicial swamp? Remember, these are unelected persons given great power, and they think they have lifetime appointments. The courts are out of control because they think they can do anything they want without any consequence. The proper checks and balances are not being used. They're gone. We've got a political class that has no clue what the proper checks and balances are. And they have convinced us, the courts, I mean, not to challenge their power. Congress has neglected to exercise powers granted to it by the Constitution designed to check the courts. And all of this has added up to a refusal by the members and representatives of our republic, not democracy, republic, to stop the courts from becoming a monstrosity of oligarchical power. Oligarchy being the few ruling over the many. A large part of the problem is that we have accepted, hook, line, and sinker, that the judicial branch's current role is to be the final arbiters of the United States Constitution. That the ultimate and final check against anything and everything that happens in politics rests on the shoulders of these persons in black robes who were not elected and who aren't going anywhere anytime soon unless they decide to resign or die. Never mind impeachment. The whole concept of judicial review and what we're talking about, I mean, it's wrong and unconstitutional. And it's suicidal to any system of liberty that allows such power to rest in the hands of those who seek to deconstruct the American system. The judicial branch's powers, as we know them, and we believe them to be anyway, in today's political environment, are found nowhere in the Constitution. In fact, the judicial branch granted their current unconstitutional powers to themselves. And if a part of government seizes power, isn't that tyranny? The power in question began in 1803 with John Marshall's written opinion regarding the Marbury versus Madison ruling. With circular reasoning, Marshall established judicial review as we know it today. And as a result, the Supreme Court has become a tyrannical oligarchy upon which all of our laws and constitutional concepts sit upon their shoulders. Now remember also, we got, after Gorsuch is confirmed, and the way it's been for a long time, you got your 4 conservatives, your 4 liberals, and Kennedy. Kennedy's the deciding vote usually, which means all the power is on his shoulders. Think about it. Did the Founding Fathers really mean for one man to have all of that power? Did the Founding Fathers in the creation of a limited government truly desire that all of that power should be held by a bunch of lawyers in black robes and ultimately on Kennedy's shoulders alone? Heck, early on, the framers were even against lawyers holding judicial positions in the first place. Now the question is, has the Trump administration figured out that the out-of-control judicial authorities are unconstitutional and that a part of draining the swamp has to be the canning of the infiltrators in the court system? Perhaps. Here's what's going on. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has asked the remaining 46 U.S. attorneys who served under the Obama administration to resign, describing the move as part of an effort to ensure a uniform transition. Past presidents done the same thing. Normally, just about all of them are gone. I remember when Bush did it, and they complained too. And when Obama did it, everybody was silent. When Clinton did it, everybody was silent. When Reagan did it, everybody complained. That's what they do. Now, this is where the Congress is supposed to pull their thumbs out of their mouths and start acting like the strongest branch of the 3 branches of government as originally intended. Yeah, that's right. I said we don't have 3 co-equal branches. Get my book, 25 Myths of the United States Constitution. Chapter 1 is on that. Some of the U.S. attorneys, as in prior transitions to the White House, already had left the department. Sessions is simply asking that the remaining 46 presidentially appointed U.S. attorneys do to tender their resignations. I mean, until the new U.S. attorneys are confirmed, according to a statement they put out, the dedicated career prosecutors in our U.S. attorney offices will continue the great work of the department investigating, prosecuting, deterring the most violent offenders. In other words, yeah, guys, you can stay, but we want your resignation so we can replace you with our guys. And it's customary, not automatic, but it is customary for the country's 93 U.S. attorneys to leave their positions once a new president is in office. Incoming administrations over the past several decades typically have replaced most U.S. attorneys during the first year or two. So Sessions' actions are not a big deal. It's nothing different than what normally happens, but his actions are being closely scrutinized by the Democrats, and the usual methods, what normally happens, whatever the tradition is, it's going to be attacked. Dianne Feinstein, senator out of California, oh boy, that's a rough one to talk about. Top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee issued a statement late Friday saying this: I'm surprised to hear that President Trump and Attorney General Sessions have abruptly fired all 46 remaining U.S. attorneys. Why are you so shocked? Every president does it, first of all. Second of all, they didn't fire them. They requested, it was a request of resignations. Traditionally, all U.S. attorneys are normally at risk during a changing of the guard at the White House. Feinstein's response was typical of the liberal left and expected. And I think a lot more fireworks are to come. But let's get back to now the constitutionality of the courts. Should they have this kind of authority, this kind of power to be the final arbiters where everybody's bowing down to them like they're some type of, hidden idol or something? I don't know. What do you think, Dennis?
Well, as you've already stated, and you and I have talked separately on this as well, you got either a misunderstanding with the Congress, you have an understanding and an abdication of using that authority in the Congress, Or maybe they understand their authority and they really aren't abdicating. They just don't have the wisdom to see what's going on. But they have their hand on the tiller on all things.
Absolutely.
If they would, but exercise it. And with what goes on, not with the Supreme Court because they can't change it, but good old Ninth District Court and the other courts, lesser courts, appellate courts, and all the other federal lower courts are all subject to congressional action. But neither the Republicans nor the Democrats have ever, that I can recall, talk about it. So it is monolithic. It's permanent. As you say, shouldn't be, doesn't have to be, but that's the understanding.
Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, we're dealing with a situation where there is a conspiracy among the leftists. As I read the history of our republic, I find time and time again that these left-wingers will engage in these conspiracies against the nation and drape it in flowers and flags and get away with it. But the fact of the matter is that last year, I don't understand what all the concern is about. Last year, I solved all these problems. I wrote a paper called "Cleaning Up the Swill on the Hill," in which I pointed out that we had just passed an omnibus spending bill that was over 2,000 pages. And therefore, there were dozens of separate legislative provisions within that bill. Now, you cannot keep a legislature working properly if there is no there is no penalty for your votes. If you vote for a bill like this one that we're talking about, how can anybody criticize you? You say, well, I was in favor of this part, but I wasn't in favor of that. It's all confused.
Well, and the thing is, you talk about how many pages? 2,000, over 2,000 pages of a bill?
Yeah, the omnibus funding bill.
Okay, you know what James Madison said about stuff like that? Here's James Madison's quote. "It will be of little avail to the people that the laws are made by men of their own choice if the laws be so voluminous that they cannot be read or so incoherent that they cannot be understood."
Well, here's my solution. California has a what do you call it? An initiative process in which the voters get to vote on that, but that's not the point. The point is that you can only have one item at a time, one provision. I'm saying that we need to pass a law that says you cannot have an omnibus bill. Every bill has to have one purpose, one issue.
Yeah, everything should be able to stand on its own merit, right?
And each legislator should be held accountable for their vote on that issue.
Well, the budget of the federal government is not supposed to be passed all in one bill. There are, I don't remember the exact number, but there's usually 5 or 6 or 7 that are supposed to be passed separately, but they never pass them on time. And it's like cramming for an exam at the end of the semester. They now get down to the point where they have to pass the omnibus bill because they have to keep the money coming into the government. They've waited too long. So everything in the kitchen sink is all in this one bill, whereas the bills ought to be passed months ahead of time to a schedule that they used to adhere to, bit by bit, one maybe on the military, one on something else, but they just jam it all together to where it's kind of like the Obamacare bill.
Could you imagine
you have to pass it to find out later on what it even means.
Could you imagine if people ran their home finances like that? Well, some do. That's why they're broke. It's incredible what they do.
No business would run itself, or no household would run itself the way the government runs itself.
The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals would not be able to block that legislation to make it a one provision bill every time, because for the last 100 and some years, California has operated that way, and nobody's ever said it was unconstitutional.
Yeah, California operates that way. The federal government operates. Well, in the case of California and really all states, if you go to Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, it says that no state shall emit bills of credit. Now, that is paper money. which are basically promissory notes, treasury bills or bonds. That's any type of bill of credit. In other words, it is unconstitutional for a state to go into debt. How come the Constitution hasn't been used for that? Why have the states gotten away with this? We'll talk more about this kind of stuff. We also got healthcare, women's rights, media, so on and so forth to bring up. So after the break, more of Douglas V. Gibbs, Dennis Jackson on Constitution Radio, along with the magnificent wisdom of Alex Ferguson when we return.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com. Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, KMET ABC News Radio. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs on KMET 1490 AM. KMET1490am.com. Hey, did you check the other show I'm on, Conservative Voice Radio? I was on it this morning, 8 a.m. every Saturday. Oh, come on, listeners. Don't tell me you missed Conservative Voice Radio. That's don't worry about it. After this program, go over to KMET 1490 AM, find Conservative Voice Radio on the website. Just go to shows, go down to Saturday, then Conservative Voice Radio. Go to the page, hit the podcast button. You can listen to today's show as well. I am on twice, 8 a.m. in the morning with the Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party, Glenn, Jan, and Diane, and with George Engineering during that program in the background. And then, of course, this live program right now on the air on KMET 1490 AM. And real quick, I wanted to also remind you, if you're curious, so have a question, you want to make a comment, 951-922-3532, 951-922-3532. Okay, so it's funny because I was in a Heritage Foundation meeting last Monday. I'm a sentinel for the Heritage Foundation on top of the many other things that I do. And I was in a conference call meeting with the Heritage Foundation, and it was literally moments before the Republicans released their Ryan Care bill. We'll call it that. And And during that meeting, we talked and we discussed a number of things. And the Heritage Foundation agrees with me that what needs to happen is full repeal. Full repeal, and then you come back later with any reform bills. And I get it. The timeline to repeal is a significant hurdle. Any further delays will push us into congressional recess, the April 28th deadline of Obamacare funding. And so time, to be honest, is running out. If both of the houses of Congress are efficient with studying the new bill they're creating, amending the bill, and approving the bill, the margin of time between the time we have and the time we use is very small. We have to be aware that the media also is pushing their own agenda and doing whatever they can to delay or stop. And then the Democrats and everybody else are doing whatever they can to slow it down, because they know if they can slow it down, they might be able to stop it. And so the closer we come to the deadline, the more difficult it will be to use reconciliation. Reconciliation is basically the ability to just use a basic majority, simple majority, to get it to pass. Otherwise, you got to go through the cloture process, where it requires a supermajority, 2/3, in order to end the debate and get cloture before you can go, for the vote. But we're being told, well, Doug, you can't just repeal it. There's all kinds of complexities that are involved. Well, all of those complexities are problems the Democrats claim a full repeal will cause. I don't necessarily think there's as many complexities as they say. Well, all these people lose their health care. They didn't have it in the first place, first of all. Second of all, the states have a safety net. Go get your Medi-Cal. But the deadline isn't only associated with budgeting and battling the Democrats. If the Republicans don't accomplish a repeal by the April session recess, the backlash at town halls by voters who support repealing Obamacare will get worse. And the failure will be seen as a broken promise. The Republicans are out of excuses, and they do need to get this done. But the language needs to be right. I get it. Or else it could derail the entire process. Got to make it bulletproof. Just like, when Trump originally put out his first ban, and it wasn't bulletproof, so they were all over it. Then he had to, okay, fine, people with a green card are fine. He had to make his changes. Any reform legislation that accompanies the repeal of Obamacare can also be a dangerous road to journey down. We need to make sure any replacement bill does not have in it the same language that caused Obamacare to fail, or for that matter, is outside constitutional authorities. In other words, federal government has no business getting involved. Repeal it, and then with the other reform pieces of legislation, it should be things like getting the federal government out of the way, no longer prohibiting selling across state lines, things like that. So anyway, so the Ryan Care comes out, the Republican monstrosity, and Rand Paul and Ann Coulter called it Obamacare Light. It's dead on arrival, in my opinion. Conservative and constitutional move to make is to offer a complete repeal and offer true market reforms. The terminology in this thing is wrong, and first of all, it's not even, we keep calling Obamacare a health care law. It has nothing to do with health care and everything to do with insurance. It is an insurance subsidy law, and a failed one at that. Rates have risen. You can't keep your doctor, and while some were subsidized to have insurance, mandated to buy, of course, many lost out because they could no longer afford because of the rising costs, the higher deductibles, so on and so forth. Have we not learned that when government interferes, it does poorly at it? I mean, Amtrak, Postal Service, DMV, whatever it is, it's like the government has the opposite of the Midas touch. Instead of turning things into gold, they turn them into turds. And then they put a little whipped cream on top so that you don't recognize it as a turd. And the problem is the Republicans are buying into the leftist bullcrap that the Democrats have bought into. They believe the insanity. Government drags down the economy when it sticks its nose into it, and now they are dragging down the economy and medicine together with their intrusions. And since they are convinced that getting rid of Obamacare is complicated because the liberal left media and the politicians say so, they are hesitant to do the right thing. If they are unwilling to repeal Obamacare, what are we supposed to think about their other promises? Will they reduce taxes? Will they legislate in a conservative manner? Alex, you're first up.
Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of Obama's campaign to destroy the American government. What he did was he made everyone unaccountable.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we get these people like Lois Lerner or Eric Holder who commit crimes, obvious crimes. Hillary's crimes are flagrant and clear to the general public, and yet nobody is ever held accountable. Now, what that means is that you don't have to go out and individually destroy departments in a government. All you have to do is give everybody permission to do any damn thing they want and get away with it. And that's what's been going on with Washington for 8 years. We're going to have to hold people accountable for what they do, and that starts with the politicians.
Right.
They're going to have to start keeping some promises, or they're going to lose. And when they lose, we lose. This is an existential moment in American history, as I'm sure we're all aware, and we cannot afford to mess it up. It's our last chance.
All right, what are your thoughts on this, Dennis? Is Obamacare light acceptable, or do we need full repeal? What do we need to do here?
Well, it's a tough question because, as you and I were talking earlier, the people that did not have the coverage that now have the coverage, even though it's being, in many regards, subsidized by those who lost their coverage, are now covered. So if you do the repeal, does that throw them back out? And that doesn't seem compassionate, doesn't seem fair. A bill was passed that maybe many people didn't care for, but it was advantageous to them. So now they're going to be victims of a bad law if it's repealed. So how do you fix it fairly and keep balance? It goes back to the old New Testament deal about, the wheat and the tares. Once they start growing together and they look so similar, you can't pull the wheat out, or you can't pull you can't separate them. Everything's grown together down there. And we have that. We have the same problem with immigration. After you let people come into the country and they marry other citizens, or they have children that are born here, the citizens, if you don't nip the problem early on, then after a generation, it gets very difficult because you have all these issues that have grown out of a problem because laws were not enforced to begin with.
Right.
So you've got that in the medical world, you've got that in the immigration world, you got that everywhere you go. When attorney generals, whether they be Kamala Harris or whether they be the head of the Justice Department, Eric Holder, when they don't enforce law, it seeds problems that are very, very difficult to undo downstream. But Congress has to meet this head on, and they have to take action. I think Sessions is right. They need to change out the AGs across the board, and they need to start implementing the law. And to those that would subvert it, they need to go in and clean house and fire them, because they are basically setting up a shadow government, and they are not maintaining their oath, which is to support the Constitution. They're going their own way, and they need to be accountable because, as you said, for many years they've been breaking the law without accountability. And until you start making them accountable, there's no risk for the illegal behavior.
And it's funny because we seem to have this belief now in the United States that if you disagree with anything anybody does, then you're automatically, it's huge lies. If you disagree with someone for any reason, you either you fear them or you hate them. If you
can't just disagree with somebody anymore.
Yeah, if in order to be a fair individual in society, you have to agree with anything and everything everybody believes and does. Otherwise, you're a hateful, fearful. What were they call it? The phobia.
Yeah.
All the different phobias. You have homophobia and Islamophobia and I don't know.
Well, I'd like to go back.
And
I'd like to go back, and this is a paraphrase. It's not even a paraphrase, but it generally is a restatement of the principles that Lincoln talked about, and a long time ago, but still appropriate. He says a society, and he's talking about us. He says it can only exist upon following laws. And if there's a bad law,
Mm-hmm.
he says you are duty bound to enforce that law and make that law apply. You can't pick and choose which ones. And if it's a bad law, people will rise up, whether it be the citizens or the legislatures
Right.
or whatever, and they will change the law. But
Right.
until that law is changed,
It's the law.
you're duty bound to follow it.
Absolutely.
And if it's a bad law, and people will get fed up to where they will change it.
Well,
But we have a selective deal. We ignore this law that should be enforced, and if it's a bad law, it ought to be changed. So you get into the habit of not following laws, and then they create other laws out of whimsy that have not been properly written, and so now everything's a slippery slope.
Yeah, and when
all gets
it comes to Obamacare, we're basically told that if we're against it, we're not compassionate, and you don't have to compromise your personal convictions to be compassionate. All right, when we return, it's top of the hour break. Yes, we're going to return for a second hour. Don't go anywhere. We've got a lot more to talk about. The swamp is deep and busy. We'll see you when we get back after this top of the hour break.